It's the Groundhog's Day edition of the Round Table. Did you guys see your shadow this morning? With us at the table, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Guys, thanks for being here. All right, let's start with Secretary Howe. She may have a tough job with the Trump administration now. Any big takeaways?
Well, first of all, Yvonne Howe is the most influential member of the Healey administration you've never heard of. And she's done a remarkable job, as you heard her tout many of her successes here. I think her approach, Maura Healey's approach to the budget and all that, was to make sure that they don't have to count on the federal government because they don't expect to get anything.
Rob?
I think she's a very effective advocate for the Healey economic policies. I think the problem is the governor's policies when it comes to business. Excessive regulation and taxation isn't a formula to getting more business development in Massachusetts.
All right, President Donald Trump has been back in the White House for less than 2 weeks, and the avalanche of news continues. He blamed DEI hiring and Democrats for a deadly midair collision over Washington, D.C. He cut off federal funding for government programs, then rescinded the order after it really caused chaos. He pulled security details from his past critics. It is difficult to know where to start at this point, but is that the point, Rob? Flood the zone?
It is. It's completely flood the zone. And I think he had a really good, let's call it, first 8 to 10 days. And then he stepped in it this week. The budget freeze, that was a disaster. It was a PR disaster.
They pulled it back 24 hours later.
Exactly. I mean,
and then said they were just rescinding the memo, but not the freeze.
Right.
So, there's some confusion there.
And then he doubled down with the presser at a time of essentially national mourning. He comes out and starts talking about DEI politics in terms
and blaming
of
it on
crash.
Joe Biden and Barack Obama.
Yeah, and Trump's, to be fair, the media caught him. I mean, Trump's first administration, he continued those policies. So he has a problem with them now, but he didn't have a problem with them in the first 4 years.
Marianne, what do you think about
This is just the start. And I think the real point here is Trump is doing everything early for two reasons. One, he's trying to consolidate power, so he's more like Putin than a president. And number two, he's trying to exhaust everybody. He's trying to stretch
Trolling?
out. Well, I would say more like Overton's window. He's trying to put so much out there, people are exhausted, throw their hands up, what can I do? I can't do anything. And then shapeshift what is acceptable in this country in terms of conduct and politics.
I want to ask you, though, so there's kind of this thought among some Democrats that there's this big Machiavellian, play to exhaust everybody, flood the zone. But
there is.
The funding freeze, doesn't that maybe demonstrate that they are still kind of disorganized? They clearly didn't realize the impact it was going to have in the immediacy of it.
You think this isn't going to happen again? It's going to happen again and again and again. And the bigger point is the fact that when you look at what he's doing, who's going to stop him? Since the Supreme Court gave him immunity, if he doesn't like a Supreme Court ruling, he's going to ignore it. Congress, he ignores it. Bills, he'll ignore it.
What do Democrats do?
How
do they respond?
Well, the Democrats, first of all, the last time he was in the White House, they brought a knife to a gunfight. There's not even a knife this time. So they need to pick it up pretty quickly because there won't be anything left to save in terms of the democracy that we all cherish.
But I think they showed signs of life this week, the Democrats. I'll give them credit. I mean, they turned this around on Trump on the budget freeze in 24 hours. So
it was Republicans. I agree with you, Rob, but ultimately, Republicans flooded the White House and complained about it because they were getting complaints from their constituents.
All right, RFK Jr. along with Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard having their confirmation hearings last week, overshadowed by some of the other news, including the plane crash. Kennedy was grilled on his past statements, many of them, about vaccines, COVID, abortion. He got into several heated shouting matches, notably with Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. His cousin Caroline Kennedy put out a pretty powerful video on social media calling him a predator. She read a letter that she sent to senators. Does he get confirmed, Rob?
I don't know. I mean, they ragdolled him in that hearing. He looked dumb. Absolutely. He looked out of touch. What it really comes down to is, as one of 100, your vote in the Senate only matters some of the time. So Senator Bill Cassidy, the Republican, a physician, was critical of Kennedy, but he has the chance to stop Kennedy. Will he do it, or will he go with Trump?
He didn't have an answer as to whether or not the COVID vaccine saved millions of lives.
Surprise. Or that he wouldn't take money if he were Secretary of HHS while he was litigating pharmaceutical companies when Elizabeth Warren grilled him. I mean, I think the thing you need to look at here, it will come down to Republicans, and Rob's right about Cassidy, but do they care more about abortion opponent, people who are pro-life, or do they care more about Trump's wrath? It's not Bobby Kennedy for them. It's one of those two
I'm going
things.
to put you on the spot, though.
Yeah.
Does he get confirmed?
Probably.
Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, she has been called to Washington to testify before Congress about so-called sanctuary cities. Mayors from Chicago, Denver, and New York, they were also called to testify. High stakes here, but is it also an opportunity for her? She could broaden her national profile, but it seems like, as Congressman Lynch pointed out in front of this hearing, they may be looking to embarrass the mayor.
Well, no doubt. I mean, it's not a coincidence she was picked because she represents Boston. She's a daughter of immigrants and all of that. She's not looking to expand or raise her national profile, but if she goes, what America's going to hear is she's the mayor of the safest large city in the country, the lowest crime rate since 1957, and still treats everybody fairly and obeys the law when it comes to the fact that state and local law enforcement cannot do the job of the
She says
feds.
it's working.
Yeah.
It's work. What Boston is doing is working. What do you think, Rob?
I mean, my question about all of this is why isn't she accepted yet to go down to Washington? It's a meatball. She can hit it out of the park going down there, being against the Republican immigration policies. That plays in Congress. I don't know why she's being tentative about this.
So would you both tell her to go? Would you tell her to go?
Yeah, and bring her daughter.
Would you go?
If I were her, definitely. It helps her
her daughter's
politically.
just a couple of weeks
Her
old.
daughter's adorable,
Exactly.
by the way. Josh Kraft filed paperwork last week with state campaign finance regulators. It's a pretty clear indication. He is going to run for mayor of Boston. So whose name will he build the campaign on? His, or is he going to make this campaign all about a referendum on Mayor Wu? Rob?
Well, listen, nobody knows what he stands for. And until people have an opinion of you, they will not accept your criticism or negative statements about your opponent. So Josh Kraft has a long way to go to build a base where voters will actually trust him.
Yeah, I mean, Rob's spot on right. And unless voters trust you, then any claim you make against Michelle Wu, they're skeptical over. They're not going to believe it until they know, like, and trust you.
People know his last name. Does that work in his favor or against him in Boston?
Are you looking at the Patriots record these last few years? No, I mean, it will come down to him and his name and whether he can convince people he would be a better
He
mayor.
has a lot of money to put ads out. All right, more with the roundtable straight ahead.